Good, folks. Welcome back, boys. One to go. We've knocked out 3 console sets so far, and we're down to what I've considered the absolute the one you shouldn't miss. Tom and Tully here bringing you the business. Are you excited?
Oh, yeah. Save the best for last. You know, save the best teams for last, save the best people on the desk for last as well. So,
I like that.
Yeah, I got you there.
Like
yeah, these teams have very formidable names here on both of them.
I mean, when you look at Hype Unit, this is Astral Authority with a little bit of help from Bobby. Just go down the line. Wolves, Leia's, Oboronic, Inbowned, oGryph. You know these guys. You've watched these guys, and they've been fantastic. A lot of them have a number of trophies, defending world champs, a lot of superlatives. And then across the way, to be honest with you, a team that's also very strong. Passion, represented by Delnyy, Jangaru, Crimson, Hamster, and Fatal Ghost. Again, names that you just kind of know. So when we look at these squads and we talk about the level of power and everything that's coming out, they're 2 evenly matched teams.
You would think so, because like they should be playing against each other a lot. There should be mind games between these 2 teams. But if previous records between Season 5 Fall Split dictate otherwise, that former Astral Authority record was just so impressive. Going into Worlds, definitely transitioning that into crowning themselves the defending champions.
Well, now we'll see how they work out. New org. Hype Unit has been really active on Twitter, so special shout out to them. I've really enjoyed watching what they've been able to pull out. So hopefully the team can match that energy. And in all honesty, I would not be surprised. Across the way, though, Passion, a fitting name for these guys. I think that these players are absolutely somebody or some people that can just pull out all the stops and even find a win despite how successful Astral and this team has been last year.
Some of them having played with each other on the previous Flashpoint roster. You have members from Elevate as well. So these members also have the experience for themselves and the synergy that they need, maybe even to take out this Hype Unit.
Well, let's get rolling. Picks and bans right about now, and we'll see how these teams wind up. We've got Passion on the left-hand side. They'll have the first pick and the first ban. Hype will be responding. So Passion right away bans out the Odin. Don't want to deal with that. And if you're new to the scene, if this is your first foray into the console side of things, Wolves is the best Odin. You don't give him Odin, and that's just the #1 rule.
I mean, you don't give him Odin, you don't give him Loki. What can you give him? If you're banning Odin and Loki because of Wolves, you're leaving so many other picks available.
I don't think the Loki is a must ban anymore. 1, it's an oddball selection. 2, last time we saw it actually wasn't very successful, believe it or not. Whereas the Odin, I think, is a strong character in its own right, and it happens to be kind of a go-to selection. So that's, you definitely got to watch out for that. Hype on the other side, a little bit more standard bans here. No King Arthur, no Freya, and that, of course, leaves the fat man open. Bacchus will pick up.
More popular in Season 6 with the changes to his Chug being available at level 1. Coming into the lane with that much magical power, that much mitigations, you're trying to battle a world of assassin supports like Naja, the Fenrir, so Bacchus getting that little bit of a boost, his popularity now in that first pick role.
It's also a fantastic, I love the access to 2 separate CCs just by level 2. Belly flop into a stun is something that is very difficult to deal with. And so with that in mind, I think Bacchus has become a very strong selection. Cernunnos and Achilles selected across the way. Meanwhile, Passion going to go with the Morrigan.
I like it, because right now there's not that many picks available where they're still kind of figuring out, but just Bacchus alone, you get 2 Bacchuses out there, double Intoxicates, double Belly Flops, double Belch Gods. They're going to be doing a lot of damage in their own rights, and the rest of the draft from Passion could be all physical gods, and I would be happy with it.
Don't worry, you've also got a Xbalanque there as well, double Darkest of Night, certainly not something I'm saying no to. Son Wukong, the Monkey King, will be chosen for Hype. And as we get into our second round of bans, we say goodbye to Giannis, we say goodbye to Artio as well, and we'll see how it all works out.
I like the Artio ban specifically. Whenever you have Sun Wukong, you want to make sure that you got that 72 transformations available to you at every given moment. So taking away some mid-mage bans specifically, knowing that Hype Unit has the next pick.
Here, so gotta watch out for what he's going to be able to do in the mid lane. We've got no Agni and no Giannis. Meanwhile, Passion across the way going to ban out some Guardians. So Hype now has control, and they're looking for Cabrakan.
I think that this one is an interesting pick, knowing that the mage is still available. They don't have to pick it now knowing that Morrigan is selected, but with Passion having it Delnyy on the solo lane, you never really know where this Morrigan is going to go. If it's mid, if it's jungle, or even if it's in that soul lane.
Well, with the Nike, I think it's more likely to see her in the soul lane. Can Nike play in other positions, in your opinion?
Not at the highest of levels, but I certainly have seen it in other roles. But you probably want to leave it in the soul lane.
Exactly. I'm a big fan of Nike, and not a lot of people are. So I want to see how this Passion team works out. Nuwa likely to be in the mid lane, but either way, we're going to the game. Let's go.
Thanks, Tom. It's Finch and Aggro here on the call as we move into our final set of the day, North American Xbox. And we got the world champs here, so it's safe to say the best of the best here on console, or at least they were in Season 5.
That's right. Hype Unit is going to be your team to beat, basically, right now in the Smite console lead on the Xbox side at the very least, but really should be across the board because they have been the best so far, including their matchup up against In Control last year at the World Championships. But Passion has a lot of talent on this side. I mean, Fatal Ghost has been on a lot of really good teams. Crimson is the second best mid in NA, if not the first, or alongside oBoronic. Those two are the ones trading roles there. And then Delnyy, of course, there. But Jangaru, I wonder if that's a name change, because these are some pretty established names to be playing with someone who's new to the scene entirely. So I am curious about that and wondering to see how he'll do.
I wouldn't be surprised to hear it at all. Because like you said, there's some really big names, but already we have some action happening over in the duo lane. Delnyy showing his face over here on the duo side, very reminiscent of what we saw with Splice towards the end of Season 5 in the World Championship, bringing the solo laner early, because you very rarely lose anything for doing it.
What are you going to get on this left-hand side? Because Inbound and oGryph have started at that purple buff. You have to be able to secure this purple if you're going to start this way. Inbound gives it up, so it is going to be purple buff going over towards Passion, and it gets them some pressure. But look on the right-hand side. It looks like Wolves is all over this blue buff.
And that's exactly what Wolves has to try and do to make up for the fact that there was this differentiation. Now, Delny's back over here, so it might not be as easy for him, as Jangaru's here to try and defend as well. The Wolves going to keep pressing the issue.
As he should, because yes, he's losing XP, but it's only one person losing XP for Hype Unit, whereas two people are losing farm on the side of Passion. It's both the jungler and the solo laner. Delny's going to hit 2, but it's Nike, so it's not really that scary at this point. Wolves has a pretty decent chance of being able to invade this blue and getting help from layers this time around.
We have a lot of different starts here, though, and because we saw some action in duo lane, we didn't get a chance to address them, but it's Sunder that's starting off upgraded for Hamster. Makes some sense on the Bacchus. Looks like a different start over here for Wolves. It might be going into the Soul Leader on this side, and double Blink for Slays and Oboronic. So I guess take your pick, Aggro, on which one of those you want to start diving into first.
Yeah, okay, we'll start with where you started, which is the Sunder for Hamster. I think it's pretty smart in this composition in particular. It looks a lot better whenever you realize Oboronic doesn't have beads, so now that even a Belch will guarantee that Sunder onto Zhong. But the big thing is that Zhong can be difficult to kill with this sort of composition. There's not a lot of guaranteed big burst damage. Nuwa Clay Minion Stun takes a bit to set up, and you have the setup necessary to do it, but it's not super consistent. This makes even a Shining Metal and then Fire Shards ultimate combo from Nuwa probably enough alongside the Bacchus damage and a Sunder to be able to kill Oboronic, or Layers, who's playing a tanky jungler, or Inbound, who's playing a warrior. This is a pretty tanky lineup for Hype Unit. Of course, Wolves on a warrior as well. And then when you look at Oboronic going for Blink instead of Beads or Aegis, I guess there isn't a lot of really good options for him. I mean, there's not a lot of really good CC. It's basically Bacchus, and half the time you're getting flopped on anyways, and so the Beads aren't going to help you that much. But if I'm Jangaru, I'm saying I'll be there, man. And if you set up a Clay Minion Stun, and Oboronic will just die. He's going to die pretty easily. This is really risky. I love Zhong with Blink. You go up against a character like Nuwa or like the Morrigan, and you blink on them, and they do what? They don't have a whole lot to really counteract that. It's just in the early game, you aren't tanky enough to really deal out that damage and live at the same time. So it's a risk.
And it really does make sense. It feels like this whole Passion squad is really good at making sure the next thing they do hurts even worse, right? Like, Nuwa has the prot shred. Jangaru can set you up to take more damage. Even Bacchus, to some extent as well. It's this team that I feel like if they get waterfalling, if they get their abilities flowing together correctly, it's a ton of damage. And even though they have this real tank squad, they probably could shred through Hype Unit. But that becomes the question. Are they ever going to get to sort of Voltron together and form that team fight? Or are some of these very strong individual characters going to stop them? I mean, Inbound's on Achilles support. That can run a game. Cabrakan can run a game, you know, so it just depends on if they can slow down some of these individual pieces.
And I think Nuwa can be a really good selection in games like this because many people think of her as the squishy killer with her ultimate late game, but I think the real way to think about her in a competitive sense is as a tank shredder because of how much prot shred she gets from those minions. Oboronic has blinked in and is looking for Jangaru a little bit late on that recall demons, but they get one. It looks like Fire Shards will get Crimson out of there, but that's where the blink comes in. Double blink onto the mid lane. Jangaru has beads, but that doesn't move you any further away from these two big boys.
And as if you needed any further reminder, this is absolutely the pair from the World Championship squad. The only difference here is Inbound, a player they've played with before, as Wolves has his ultimate forced out in the solo lane, and they've had a ton of success with him. Yes, it was Chapo that helped them win Worlds, but Inbound's no stranger to this squad, so no surprise that the double blink synergy is there between Layers, who's now doing the slaying instead of Gryph, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Gryph stopped slaying, and now Layers has begun slaying. Layers really can't keep on one name, man. I mean,
he absolutely can't.
Chaotic Purpose, it's Layers of Death, yeah. Layers OD, like it's just. There's always some name change going on. Microsoft really making bank off his $10 every time he gets a new idea, isn't it?
It really is. That's how all that stuff stays afloat, right? You only need one or two guys like Layers for the whole system.
He's wailing on name
sense.
changes.
That's right. He's certainly a strong player, though. You don't want... I know him as KP, I guess. When I came in, he was going under Chaotic Purpose. You're right, Layers of Death as well. You definitely don't want KP coming at you, though.
What's your favorite version of Layers' names?
I like Chaotic Purpose.
Chaotic Purpose was good. Layers OD, I think, was the best.
That's good.
It has the callback to the Layers of Death. It's cleaner.
Can kind of stand on its own a little bit, even if you don't know before, right? Yeah,
exactly.
That's,
that's why I think it was the best.
That's a good name.
I don't know. Maybe Layers Slays will grow
I think this is pretty funny, though. If you know the Griffin Slays and the change over, this is very funny.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I gotta say, you know, I did something like this in the past as well. When I had to change my gamer tag, I played with El Chapo and El Brochacho, so I changed mine to El Agro, which I thought was funny because I am very clearly not Latin as they are.
Right.
But I said I earned my L.
I worry about you sometimes on like really sunny days.
You should, no matter what time of year it is.
Right.
I have gotten sunburnt going on a long drive.
Like in the car?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, my left arm will get sunburnt.
Haven't seen much come from this Sunder just yet, but haven't seen much action at all over here in the dual lane. Normally, Bacchus is enough to give you early pressure, but I wonder if the fact that it's Achilles over here has slowed that down to the point where they couldn't get a start, even with Delnyy joining them at the dual lane to start the game.
That must have been a big part of it because Inbound just has such an aggressive option available to him with Fatal Strike. If anyone gets even a little bit low, you end up being in a very strange spot and you end up almost dying basically every time to it. So that is something that you have to be wary of. Looks like Jangaru used that Changeling ultimate change into Bacchus, I believe, is what I heard an Intoxicate go off at some point.
He's definitely down.
And Jangaru's ultimate being down is just go time for Oboronic, whose blink is down, but still has the option.
They're committing onto Oboronic, though, and Oboronic is running forward. He wants more of the action. Jangaru is low and forces stealth away, but it's because Inbound's nearby, and he finds the second kill for Hype Unit, but they are not done. Hamster's the next, and execute threshold. That's a double for Bobby as he gets two.
Yeah, that's a good rotation in there by Bobby, but Layers looking so comfortable on this Cabrakan. No matter what name he's been under, Layers OD, Chaotic Purpose, my man has been a Cabrakan main for a long, long time. He loves this pick and seems very, very comfortable on it. He takes his target, everyone else, Oboronic and everybody else on different targets, but Layers keeps the tank locked down and lets that execute come through eventually from Inbound. And that minion stun from Crimson just has to land onto Zhong off that flop from Hamster. Otherwise, that fight is never going to go well. Did Hamster even use Intoxicate during that? It's still up,
I don't think so,
which makes me believe that he didn't use it. I'm pretty sure Crimson ran out of mana and couldn't use Fire Shards, and that's why he ended up dying. But maybe Hamster felt the same pain and ran out of some mana, but I don't know. I don't know if it would have done enough to oBoronic to kill him, but it would have at least made him think twice.
I do just love that, though. It's what makes this team so scary to me is that they have this trust in each other, because oBoronic does get about half health to initiate that fight, right? Hamster jumps in on him, but oBoronic is thinking of nothing else except pushing the stick forward and running in, because he knows that not just is Inbound coming, but he trusts Inbound to come in and hit his stuff when he gets there. And that's exactly what happens, and they have just enough to clean up a couple kills and take that mid lane control.
Now Crimson a little bit behind oBoronic, which is not really where you want to be with this new selection, especially with the sort of start that Crimson went. He went a Blessing and instead gone for this Shoes of Focus rush. And we're seeing more and more mid laners start to go for this. And this was a thing a little bit last year as well. It kind of developed in the minor league in Europe for the most part, and then it trickled over towards NA. And it's because those early buff starts are so important. Your first red respawn is so critical to getting the game going in your favor that you want to be as powerful as possible for that. But Crimson, now that they realized he was going for the start and they didn't invade on him, now is left at a little bit of a power vacuum. And this was replaced a couple years ago. Actually, that was 2 years ago, it must have been, because of the Rod of Tahuti rush was what came right after that. It was boots, and you basically rush Rod right after that to make up for your power, for your lack of power. But that isn't really a thing anymore. And in this Book of Thought that he'll eventually go for, it's still going to take even more time to ramp up. So it's going to take a little bit before he's really ready to start fighting.
It's definitely slow, and it has me wondering what point they're trying to capitalize on in the game, because they've gone double blink between mid and jungle, and when's really the time period that you want to capitalize on that? If it's not early, it's before they get their second relic, I imagine.
Yes, absolutely. You want to punish them before that. Inbound in a bit of trouble here, but those tank boots doing him quite a good bit of work, because the dots from Poison Darts, the dots from Belch of the Gods, all those do is stack up that passive on the boots.
Purple buff was the initial target, but I gotta think that this Bacchus is suddenly looking a bit better. Gotta be careful though, Jangaru nearby in the jungle and does have the changeling back up. But at this point, it looks like Hype Unit will no longer hard commit to this. Inbound might look for a cheeky steal, but aside from that, he's done here.
Still secured by the side of Passion, as it looks like the Totem of Coup going over towards Hype Unit. Another reason that I think this Boots start can work in this meta in comparison to metas last year is that MP5 buff you get from Totem of Coup is really, really impactful.
It's nice.
And so you aren't losing as much of that sustain in your mana pool as you would have in previous years by not going for a Blessing.
Wolves and Delnyy just kind of trading some blows on the solo side, so it won't be too bad. But Totem of Coup, just one of a good many changes that have been coming in towards Season 6 to try and make it, to give a little bit more of a different feel to Season 5. Just one more thing for solo laners to fight over, makes life a little bit easier for you if your team has it. I think it's a mental thing too. When you hear the coup and you look at your tower and it's lit up, you're like, all right, yeah, we're winning something somewhere.
That's right.
So that's always nice.
It gives me something else to be toxic about as well.
Absolutely.
When I'm not getting Totem of Coup on my team. And I
hear
get
Totem
upset.
of Coup, their towers light up, VVGN, VER, you know,
right.
that sort of stuff.
The whole shebang. Yeah, absolutely. That's what you can expect if you're in Finch's game. Not mine. I'll say NT, smile.
You don't mean that.
I won't mean it, but I'll say it.
Sure.
What difference does it make if I mean it?
I guess that's right. I mean, I don't mean what I said either. Call it toxic.
You do.
Hype Unit have spent some time around this red buff, but I don't know if they've gotten the timing right just yet. They have not been able to steal it this last respawn, but they are definitely lurking as they are here with Hamster inbound, trying to lock him down. Crimson is nearby for support, but may have become the target instead. And now they'll turn back, and it's 4v1. Hamster has been isolated.
Uh-oh. Layers getting pretty low. Jangaru's here with that Bacchus transformation. He's chasing down Layers, but Layers has a speed buff. I don't think he's going to be able to catch him. In fact, Layers able to blink out and Intoxicate. Hits a very healthy inbound, well-timed Fatal Strike just for the CC immunity. And now Crimson has Wolves to deal with in the mid lane.
And Wolves can absolutely dive this.
Goodbye.
In fact, he's going to go into the ultimate. And Crimson, a good juker, is actually good enough to at least avoid the ult. It won't save his life for sure, but he ends up getting him. I don't know if he recognizes the clone's right here, but he's already on his way out.
That is that team fight really should have gone much better for Passion. Hamster buys enough time, he does enough damage, gets his ultimate off, Layers gets away with pretty low HP, but then Jangaru ends up chasing a kill that he really shouldn't be going after. Crimson zoned away really nicely by Inbound, and I just don't know about the transformation options at this point for Jangaru. The Bacchus just hasn't looked particularly impactful on transformation.
Well, Gold Fury being pulled, as we'll come back to the targets for Jangaru to switch into, as at about half HP. Hamster and Fatal Ghost are nearby, and looks like that's enough to deter Hype Unit for now, as they do start to fade away from this Gold Fury. I know you weren't saying that you particularly liked the transformations. Maybe Cabrakan, or who else would you want to see?
I was going to say,
turn
yeah,
into?
I think Cabrakan's your best option in that particular scenario,
In that
where
one,
you
yeah.
can lock someone in. You're
Because
dealing
that's what
enough
they don't
damage.
have, right? Is lockdown, it feels
Right.
like, on Passion.
Right, I agree. Or if he's looking for survivability, Nike or Wukong. Wukong's a great option just to get your hands dirty in the middle of these team fights, because
Right.
Wolves is the only person with 3 completed items so far. He's got a big XP lead. That doesn't matter quite as much for you, but the levels are what are really important, or the items rather are what are really important. So he's got a fully stacked Soul Eater and a Breastplate of Valor. He's going to do a lot of damage, and he'll get multiple rotations of your cooldowns off before you have to de-transform. I think that Wukong or Cabrakan ends up being a much better transformation, because now at this point, Hamster only has Pen Boots and Stone of Binding. That's not quite good enough to get the job done sometimes. And, by the way, I don't think he's used this Sunder yet. You don't get that on the transformation, but if you're going to invest in this Sunder, you have to make use of it, especially when you upgrade it.
Yeah, I think he might have tried it on that Oboronic play in mid that didn't end up working in their favor, but you're right. It has not been enough, it feels like, to justify this first item choice, because for sure we could have used something like Sprint, Horrific Shell, something like that in these early fights and gotten more out of them without a doubt.
Very surprised that it's Beats instead of Aegis for Oboronic. As we mentioned, there's not that much hard lockdown, and a lot of it is fairly telegraphed. I think that Fire Shards could become a problem for him later on in the game, though, again, going for Blink in general in this game is pretty risky, because I do think that Beads and Aegis help you out quite a bit in this particular game. Even though the lockdown there isn't a ton of it for Passion, the ones that they do have are pretty strong. You know, it's Bacchus knock up into guaranteed stun. It's a minion stun that you can't afford to take if you get rooted from Crimson's passive. It's the follow up off of the 3 aspects that Morrigan's going to throw at you. It can be a lot of burst off of it.
Griffin has the Gold Fury pulled for now, and Hamster once again is the target and not even going to be able to get the flop off. Layers removes him quickly, but that was a team effort, and that was without even having Wolves nearby, who has Jangaru busy. They're going to keep the Gold Fury pulled, and Wolves is going to easily survive in right.
Yeah, and that's another transformation down. Jangaru trying to transform into Wolves this time around, but with that distance, can't close that without a blink of his own. Gold Fury does go down for Hype Unit. And this is they're just making this look really, really easy, Finch. They're really controlling the map very well. This Morrigan pickup for Jangaru, I gotta say, I have not been a fan of whatsoever. I've never been super high on Morrigan in the jungle. I think that levels, you kind of want to hide her away in the early game and make her only fight whenever she has her transformation up. And in jungle, you can't really do that very easily. She always needs to be near these fights. Her items are expensive that she's going to want to get. I mean, it's Spear of Desolation, it's Chronos Pendant, it's these really expensive items. Whereas you look across the way, Layers is playing a Guardian, sure, but he's still able to go Pen Boots into Bancrofts, which is fairly cheap, and then Voidstone right after that, cheap on its own right as well. Both those items are several hundred gold cheaper than what Jangaru is buying, and they're more impactful in the early game. So it just, the power curve for Morrigan jungle just feels a little bit too slow for me to really be a fan of it.
And certainly in this situation where Layers has been able to capitalize on it quite well.
And if you're going to be going for it, you have to at least make the most of your transformations, right? If your power curve is slow and not really worth going a lot of the time, the reason you're taking it is because of how good the transformations are in this game. They're just impossible.
You can kind of cheat through that power curve if your transformations are good, because in a lot of ways you are borrowing from wherever you transform into.
Exactly, but Jangaru really hasn't made that happen either. So we have to see a little bit more of that. Though the later the game goes, the better this Morrigan pick is going to look, because just having a Morrigan who's level 20 and 6 slotted is going to be worth it no matter where you put her.
And they have a squad that is by no means going to vanish into the late game, I would say. I mean, the Xbalanque, the Nuwa, even Nike feels really good when you get her late, and she's nigh unkillable. The question is, are they going to get there without paying too hefty a price? As Hamster already in trouble, locked down beside the tectonic shift. And now it's Wolves left for cleanup duty. He certainly can, but he doesn't drop back in. They're going to let Inbound handle that. But somehow Hamster still lives. Wolves finally puts him in the ground.
Wolves is level 18, by the way. We're 17 minutes into the game. This dude is doing whatever he wants, including blinking right on top of Crimson, but their fight is still going on this right-hand side. Jangaru gets a good transformation off this time to save his own life. Fire Shards does some damage, but Hype Unit's still awfully healthy.
And just too tanky, like you highlighted earlier. Another kill for Wolves as he completes the killing spree, and that forces back Passion. And now the right side of the map is wide open for Hype Unit. Pyromancer right there for them if they want to grab, but even perhaps an early Fire Giant. It looks like Pyro will be the call.
And this is easily done by Hype Unit because their builds work so well together. The early Spear of the Magus by Oboronic plus the Voidstone from Layers means they're both dealing insane amounts of damage, and they're helping each other at the same time. And here comes another blink from Oboronic. Minion stun, not quite there yet, but still the threat of it is enough to make him turn around, plus Hamster coming out of base.
Is 4 blinks good?
It's not bad if you're not worried about damage or CC coming your way. And when you're the ones, when you are the first puncher every time, Blink looks really, really good.
It sure does.
All the time.
And if you're landing the first punch. Sometimes you can be the first puncher and whiff and you don't worry so much about it. But yes, you're right. When you're succeeding, Blink is about the best relic you can have, because it can even do like we saw earlier for Layers, where he was able to use it defensively to get away from Jangaru after his transformation and get back out. So it has some applications on both sides, but it really can feel oppressive once someone's gotten the lead on you, because it enables them to almost cheat their kit a little bit, right? To do so much more than what they normally can.
Hamster is also very far behind. I was mentioning Wolves being at an absurd level 19 at 19 minutes. But you look at where Hamster is only level 11, whereas Inbound level 14. Bacchus is really good right now, don't get me wrong, but when you don't have your second relic 19 minutes into the game, it's not worth it. It's just not worth the pick. You have to do a better job of surviving that early game, and there's been so much investment by Hype Unit into killing Hamster, but I don't think that's because of the Bacchus pick. If anything, the Bacchus pick is going to deter them from trying to dump that much into you, because he's the tankiest character in the game at any given point. He's got 14% damage mitigation all the time, basically, and no one else can say that, but they're still killing him, and I think that really goes to show just how far behind Hamster is and how much he needs to work on trying to catch up at this point.
And how well they've done of isolating Hamster as well, I think, is really important. Tanks can take a lot of damage. These Guardians can take a lot of damage, but it really isn't so much in taking damage. It's like a timer your team gets to work with. It's like, I bought my team 3 seconds to reposition. I bought my team 3 seconds to get in without having to worry about these abilities. They haven't been able to capitalize on what your tankiness really translates to in a game, right? In a team fight. Instead, it's just been Hamster getting shredded by himself with no one nearby to capitalize at all.
Inbound, it's so tanky. He went for an early Talisman of Energy, and this is an item that I think is really underpurchased as a whole. I don't know about purchasing it this early on. Look at that damage onto Hamster. Layers uses both of his stuns, and half healths Hamster nearly by himself. A little bit of damage there from Oboronic, but not even that much. Now Hamster's in easy kill range. Another one of those combos with even just Gryph around as a guaranteed kill.
Well, it's Oni Fury on the table for Gryph as he's pulling it by himself. And right now, they can't even make it past Inbound, who is shrugging off most of the team. That will be the Oni going the way of Hype Unit, and really they pay no price. The rest of Passion cannot afford to step in and try and contest. In fact, Wolves wants a little bit more. He's got Delnyy and Jangaru both running for the hills.
As he should be. Level 20. He should be looking for any fight he can get, because no one else is going to be able to contest that pretty easily. Delny's level 19, sure, but he's Nike. Delnyy himself is not going to make nearly the impact that Wolves will, just because of character selection. Delnyy is going to be dealing a lot of help with his passive, helping everyone else on his team do more, but that is independent of Delny's level. Plus, you're really far away if you're on Passion from getting all 3 points of that Nike passive, because you need 10 kills across your team. They currently are 0. They're blanked on the board, so it's going to be a while before that Nike's passive is even worth the selection itself.
About as far away as they can be as Delny's forced to use the Thorns. Stun means they want more here, but there's the ultimate from Nike, which can make her so difficult to try and kill. They will take down the Tier 1 tower at the very least and open up the map a bit more.
That was not only Nike ult, but Xbalanque ult as well. Fatal Ghost uses Darkest of Nights to try and save him. Layers with some pings, potentially looking for Hamster, but not enough damage around, even with Gryph there. I think Oboronic is so critical to how much damage Layers can deal at any given point just because of that Spear of the Magus.
And this is so interesting. We've seen so many Fire Giants time to the natural flow just a little bit before that next one ends up spawning, the enhanced version. It's Hamster, though, in a spot of trouble. Inbound, yet again, pushing far beyond that front line to zone everyone away, but they don't really want to start the Fire Giant at all. Looks like they're trying to see if they can force Passion to commit into a bad fight.
Yeah, I don't love forcing a fire in that spot. I like what Fatal Ghost does, just stay in lane, get as much farm as possible, because Lord knows you're going to need it pretty soon. He's going to have to make a big impact in these team fights. I think that Hype Unit playing around the right side of the map and looking for a pick is the right idea, but at this point, Fire Giant seems a little bit too generous for me to try and go for, a little bit too risky, but they're going to go for it here potentially.
Delny's nearby. No Sentinel Zeus yet, just yet. Still on cooldown after having to use it on the right-hand side, but is going to come in and contest. And if anything, all he has to do is delay and try and force this to be costly for them to stick on it. In fact, the rest of Passion now are on their way to try and contest. They will have to go for the Fire Giant. Great work from Delnyy, and now Inbound's into trouble. Uses the ultimate to get away, but a big ultimate from oBoronic to turn the fight on its head.
That blink in from the Zhong, too good. Fatal Ghost's beads may be enough to save him, but Hamster will not be saved. oGryph able to take him down. Wolves gets the cleanup kill on the Fatal Ghost. And another fight goes by, Finch, where the focus is onto a tank, where Hamster's right there, and the Sunder doesn't come out.
Right.
And it just has to. It has to in that spot. The only way Passion has any hope of getting anything out of this fight is if Inbound falls early and easily, and they picked the right idea to do it, which is the Sunder, and it just wasn't used.
And now the Fire Giant will be going down essentially for free about a minute before the enhanced form ends up spawning in. And this is what a lead can kind of do for you, right? I don't know if the Fire Giant, the way they did it was the cleanest call or cleanest execution. They did peel off it very well and didn't get stuck on it. It was only Inbound potentially could pay the price. But when you have a level 20 Zhong that can blink in and just drop the ult and say, hey, I'm here. I mean, it's just good.
Yes, I agree. You get them in a narrow corridor, you get them away from their towers and away from help, and you just get in there and really wreak havoc, and that's exactly what oBoronic did. Hype Unit's ability to bring that Fire Giant low enough where you force Passion to commit, you force the whole team to rotate, they need to engage on you, and you've taken enough damage to where it looks like a good fight for you, but then still be able to immediately, in synchronization, pull off the objective and begin the fight right as oBoronic is arriving. They're world champions. I mean, you can tell. They look easily better than Passion does in this game, and head and shoulders above.
And Passion as a team, I think, has a lot of potential. It's a very strong team, like you said, with some names on it that we know very well and are good players. It just when you run into Old Astral, run into Hype Unit, it can be tough. You know.
Delny's a former world champion himself.
That's
I mean, he's a very good player. Like I said, I think Crimson is the second or first best mid laner in North America. Kind of depending on the day, more so depending on the meta. In my mind, and I think in the current meta, I would favor oBoronic just because it isn't a Thoth meta necessarily. So Crimson loses some inherent value because that's his best god. But Crimson's still an absolute beast, no doubt about it. It's just that Hype Unit as a whole, I think, has the equal, if not better, in all the positions, and is working better together as a unit.
Now they have an opportunity to push down some tier 2 towers. There's still one standing in mid and solo, and they've sent Delnyy and Crimson over to defend those respectively. But that does leave 3 members in left lane threatening the Phoenix. Look how they're spreading out the map and forcing Passion to make tough decisions.
Wolves on the right, Layers in mid, the rest of the team on that left side Phoenix, and they're going to actually push into this a little bit. Inbound so tanky. Look at how much damage Hamster takes from him and oBoronic, and a little bit from oGryph as well. Inbound loses a third of his life bar, but he's Achilles and has some sustain built in, and the Fire Giant buff ticking on him, of course, whereas Hamster lost way over half his health without any sort of real commit.
And the benefit of being level 18 as well, as Hamster still struggles down in level 15. Blink is going to start the fight off. Fatal Ghost, the initial target. He is able to get out of there with the Rising Jaguar, but now comes oBoronic waddling his way in. He's ready to drop in the damage, but Inbound a little bit too low. He has to leave, but that does not slow down Layers, who finds Ghost.
Now Layers need some help, though. Locked in underneath that Phoenix. Jangaru does take him out, but oGryph answers back on the Delnyy pretty quickly. Wolves underneath that Phoenix. Now, after using Somersault Cloud, great Aegis from Jangaru, maybe enough to keep him up.
Jangaru actually wants to come by and try and find the punish, just letting the stun, but Wolves a little bit too far ahead for that punish to be completed. But look at the Phoenix. It's still very healthy. They didn't get enough on it, but they are going to take down Hamster. And with oGryph still healthy, they can burn down the structure now.
Look, the Phoenix will still be there when the fight is won. That's the mentality for Hype Unit. It's the correct one. You can just tell how much Inbound and Layers have played together. They're perfect swapping of not just Phoenix aggro, but the entire team's attention. Inbound blinks in, gets the dash from Fatal Ghost, and immediately starts weaseling his way out, but doesn't just get out as fast as possible because he wants people to keep their eyes on him, and that's when Layers comes in, streaking across the Phoenix, and blinks in and locks in Fatal Ghost perfectly. I mean, that is textbook Smite on how you want to juggle the attention of the enemy front line, on who needs to be peeled and who needs to be ignored, and just let the carry stay isolated. That was flawless.
And now what we're really seeing, I think, from Passion is that they are running into this lead truly, at this point. You know, maybe you could say earlier there were some mistakes, some missed target selections, that sort of thing. But right now, Hype Unit are sort of deciding who's going to be the target when the initiation are happening. All Passion have to do is respond, essentially, underneath the Phoenix. It's why so often you can see games get stalled there or even come back, because the game does get somewhat simplified in that sense. But right now, it almost doesn't matter. Passion just don't have the numbers.
Yes, they don't. And, I mean, level 15 on, now 16 on Hamster. Jangaru just now hitting level 20. They just don't have the damage and the items either. I mean, no Obsidian Shard completed for Crimson. A Shaman's Ring for Jangaru, which I hate it. I hate it. I cannot tell you how much I hate this Finch.
Let me hear it.
Shaman's Ring is really good on tick characters, right?
Okay.
Or gods that are going to dump their whole kit all at once. Morrigan is kind of like that, where the idea is that you're getting Shaman's Ring because you want to get the stun first and then deal that 10% extra damage on your auto attack and your 2. But then you're transforming, and then you're losing this passive, and it's useless to you. You only have 2 damaging abilities on the Morrigan.
But they're going to swing aggro.
But they won't until he stacks it, and the game's going to be over by that point.
That's a good point. Jangaru in some trouble. It might not end up mattering as Inbound finds the execute, and that's a killing spree now, 3 in a row. The Tectonic Rift going to lock in 2 more, and Baronic's going to recall Demons. That's going to set up 1 for Layers as well. Delnyy nowhere to go, and a double for the Zhong. Fatal Ghost is pretty good at the game, but not good enough to stop 5 aggro. This is looking like Hype Unit going to barrel in.
Easily. It looks like Layers out of the MVP discussion for this game just because he is the only death on Hype Unit. Clinical. I mean, they dissected Passion in this game.
And it is, to some extent, what you would expect, right, from this team. A team that was together in summer and looked very good. We're finally able to take down that rival juggernaut that looked so strong once Inbound rejoined the squad. And a team that, with Choppa, were able to win Worlds at the end of fall. They've just been beating everybody else on console for about as long as I can remember, and I don't see them slowing down.
Me neither. I mean, this team looks really, really good. Now, for Passion, I think that the Morrigan pick has got to be changed. I mean, I'm done with that one. Don't need to see it ever again as far as I'm concerned. Let Crimson play a more impactful god. Nuwa is the safe. I'm not trying to mess up here. I mean, you can make a lot of plays with her if you're playing aggressively, but you're never playing aggressively with that composition. And Hamster needs to do a better job of playing to the relics and the situations that he's putting himself in with his purchases. I think that if Passion's able to change those few things up, they've got a chance to really give Hype Unit a game.
That's right, man. If you've got a shovel, you should dig.
Yeah.
At least that's what I think.
I agree with you.
It didn't work for about in that case, but let's get it back over to the desk. We'll let the analysts go over what they saw in Game 1.
I like that. If you got a shovel, choose to dig. That's what I always say. You've got the right tools, go ahead. Well, here we go. Hype Unit just tooling around Passion, and this looked, I mean, Ryan used the word clinical, clean. Just pick one. This was Hype Unit doing what they did.
I think their first death was around the 25, 26 minute mark where they were sieging that left side Phoenix. Layers taking a spill there. But that just goes to show the kind of actual Hype Unit that these group of 5 players are. They had a very aggressive composition. The Achilles support for Inbound, baiting himself out in very bad spots, but knowing when to peel back allowed Oboronic to just really pop off.
And that's what this guy has just always done. One of the best mid laners on both consoles, frankly, just might be the guy. And Oboronic, Inbound, Gryph, Layers, Wolves. I think there's a lot of fans out there that expected this type of experience, and they got what they asked for.
That's right. Wolves playing the Sun Wukong. Just fantastic work. Playing to dive Crimson. Really unfortunate stuff for Crimson. They're playing the Nuwa, trying to survive, couldn't really do so, and building the Soul Eater to start off the game just goes to show the kind of player mentality Wolves has, that he's not really worried about the laning phase or any sort of ganks, especially when you're dealing with a Morrigan jungle.
And when it comes down to it, Wolves is solo laners are the Swiss Army knife. They have to fill whatever void the team needs. And Wolves is one of these rare solo laners that the team fills the void around him. And he really embodies this warrior mentality where, yes, he's your front line, but he's absolutely there to bring offense as well.
That clip right there, he was zoning 2 away from middle while containing the jungle Morrigan at bay, making sure she wasn't going to get assistance or escape at the same time. Just very multi-purpose, like you mentioned, that Swiss Army knife that Wolves brings for his team.
Just can't handle it. Just can't handle it. Wolves has been one of the best players on the sticks since he started. It's now, how many years later? He's still one of the best damn players I've seen on a controller. Can't wait to see what this guy is able to do in the future. Moving on to game number 2, I mean, Hype Unit just continue to do what they're doing, right? Passion, what does Passion have to do to answer?
Honestly, Aggro put it really well to the point where Crimson playing the Nua was a little bit too passive for what Hype Unit was bringing to the table. Achilles supports, some Wukong in the solo lane. These two gods are looking to dive the back line, and I think that there needs to be more preparation of how to deal with that. Bacchus, very early picked, is an aggressive support. Maybe lean a little bit more towards the Gebs of the world, the Kumakarna, gods that have better peel available.